the new email? It's also for the high school district.
They thought they were having their budget hearing right now, or their board meeting.
It's showing that you're live on YouTube.
But there's a slight delay, so it is recording you right now, but there's a slight delay before it happens. We'll give you the word when it turns on.
Okay. The agenda that Clarice sent us is the one we're going by, correct? There wasn't
That's
an
correct.
updated one? Okay.
Sigal, do you want me to move things as usual? You're muted.
Sorry, yes,
Okay.
please, thanks.
Okay, you are. All right, we are simulcasting. Good evening, everybody. This is Dominic Palmer, I'm the Superintendent of Merrick School Districts. This is our board meeting and budget hearing. The primary purpose of this meeting is the budget hearing. Board President?
Good evening, everybody. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. I'd like to pass the meeting to Jennifer Buscemi, who's our Assistant Superintendent for Business and Technology.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this evening's budget hearing portion of the meeting. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Jennifer Buscemi, and I am the Assistant Superintendent for Business. I have developed next year's proposed budget with input from the board, superintendent, district-wide administrators, and staff. As a result of the pandemic, this year has been unprecedented in many ways, and significant changes were made to the overall budget development process. The tight budget deadlines surrounding the budget vote and trustee election have been an enormous challenge, and building a budget given the uncertainty over potential state aid cuts is another hurdle we are facing. We hope that tonight's budget presentation, along with all the budget materials posted on our website and information mailed to your homes, will provide you with all the information you need to make an informed vote on the proposed school budget. The proposed budget preserves all programs and includes the continued investment in instructional technology, furniture, equipment, and infrastructure. The proposed budget is $52,905,513, which is 3.4% higher than the current year's budget, but still only 2.2% higher than last year's budget, since the current year's budget is 1.2% lower than last year. This slide includes a summary of the factors included in the district's tax levy limit calculation. The proposed budget is supported by a tax levy of $42,024,690. This represents a 2.45% increase from the current year and is under our tax levy limit of 2.47%. This is the 9th straight year that the district's proposed tax levy has been at or under the state-imposed tax levy cap. The revenue projections supporting the proposed budget include state aid of $6,898,113. This projection was included in the New York State budget released on March 31st and is $217,544 higher than the current year. This increase is mainly due to an increase in our expense-based aids, such as building aid. Since March 31st, we have not received any additional state aid projections, but Governor Cuomo has stated that the state may reduce foundation aid to schools if state revenues come in below budget and the state does not receive additional help from the federal government. According to the governor, this reduction in aid will be based on 3 assessment periods of state revenues. The first assessment period ran from April 1st to April 30th. We are currently in the second assessment period, which runs from May 1st to June 30th, and the last assessment period will run from July 1st to December 31st. We hope to receive news from the state soon regarding the results of these assessment periods and their effect on school aid. A 20% decrease in foundation aid could mean a potential cut in aid of $839,257, and plans will be made to address the shortfall if realized. All other year-to-year revenue increases or decreases were made based on all the current information available or trend analysis on actual revenues collected. Appropriated fund balance to support the budget has not changed from the current year. The proposed budget of $52,905,513 on this slide and the next is shown in 3 different formats. The tables represent the change in the proposed budget compared to the current year's budget. The budget is displayed in the first table by function or department. Salaries are spread out amongst each department, but employee benefits are broken out separately. Instructional costs represent the largest portion of the budget and has the largest percentage increase. The second table breaks down the budget by object or type of expenditure. Since educational programs and services are directly delivered by teachers and support staff, salaries and benefits make up almost 80% of the budget. The increase of 3.6% in contractual costs includes $66,211 for the purchase of a new bus. Our one spare bus is currently 18 years old. Part of this expenditure is aided and is shown in our revenue slide. Our transportation aid ratio is currently 47.9% of aidable costs. Since our mileage ratio is lower than the state aided ratio, we recognize roughly 35% back in aid every year for our transportation expenses. The increase of 4.1% in BOCES costs represent additional costs for security camera monitoring, additional special education services, computers, laptops, smartboards, and the services of a health and safety compliance officer. This service will help us in the reopening of our schools. Our BOCES aid ratio is currently 79.5% of aidable expenses. Since 100% of our BOCES costs are not aidable, we do recognize about 51% back in aid each year sharing services through BOCES. Other smaller increases in the budget stem from projected need for increases in services or costs. This slide shows the same proposed budget of $52,905,513 broken down in 3 components: administrative, program, and capital. Expense categories are broken out by component, and employee benefits are spread out amongst each. The 3-part budget in detail can be found online and included in the 2020-2021 budget statement. If the proposed budget is defeated, the board may decide to do one of the following: resubmit the defeated budget or revised budget on the statewide budget revote date, which we currently do not know when that will be, or adopt a contingent budget immediately, which will be enacted on July 1st, 2020. Under the property tax cap legislation, when a district adopts a contingent budget, the tax levy cannot be increased for any reason, and the tax levy limit is set at 0%. There are no exclusions allowed under a contingent budget. Therefore, no tax levy increase would mean reductions of at least $304,491 in expenditures for equipment, capital projects, and other administrative costs. In addition, reductions of at least $700,492 in student programs and services will also be necessary if a contingent budget is adopted. And facilities usage by the public will be limited in accordance with the law. If you visit our website, you will find a lot of additional budget material, and the budget newsletter is also posted online. The budget newsletter provides a lot of information about the budget and lists many of the wonderful programs the district provides. You will also be receiving the district budget notice in the mail in the upcoming days. Included online is also the budget statement. And inside the budget statement, you will find the proposed budget in three-part format: the property tax report card, school academic report cards, the district's fiscal accountability summary, the administrative compensation disclosure, and the exemption report for our school district. This year, voting will only be by absentee ballot, and the district will send absentee ballots with a postage-paid return envelope to those residents whose names can be ascertained from the registration rolls utilized from last year's budget vote and election, as well as those residents whose names have been added to the rolls since that time. Ballots must be received by the district clerk no later than 5 p.m. on Tuesday, June 9th, 2020, and must be returned in the provided envelope with the attestation on the envelope signed by the qualified voter. At this time, we are going to take a short break to see if we have any questions that came in from the public.
Okay. While we are waiting for that, I'm going to that was a lot of information in a short period of time. Thank you, Jennifer. I just want to highlight a number of items. So first, when we built this budget, the primary goal was to develop a program, a budget that can support all of our programs and services that we have been delivering. We built the budget around the governor's initial financial proposal, which then, when the economy started to suffer from the pandemic, the governor removed $355,000 of our aid at the start. We adjusted the budget in April to accommodate that lack of funding so that we can still make programs. We felt at the time that we can still deliver the same high quality of program comes the fall, and we can keep all of our staff at work doing what they needed to do. Shortly after that, the pandemic went long, and we started hearing concerns from our governor that he may have to cut our state aid by 20 to 50%. 50% of our foundation aid would be $2 million. We continue to build a budget with the concept that we want to deliver the right programs for next year. This budget can do that. The concerns that many people are expressing is what happens if we're in a virtual environment next year. We will adjust accordingly. Any funds that are not needed from a budget because of some of the savings that might happen in a virtual environment would, of course, be returned to the fund balance. We also believe, if you take the other side of the coin, that if we return to a live in school in September, as I hope, there will be additional expenses that will be incurred by school districts. We believe that we can accommodate those within this current budget. Our big concerns are that if this budget fails, there may or may not be an opportunity for a second vote. The date has not been set yet for a second vote. If there is no second vote, or if there is and it fails a second time, we will have to remove $1 million from this budget. That would have a significant impact on our instructional programs. If on top of that, we lose revenue from the state, it would further deepen the impact. So we are hopeful that this budget will successfully fly and provide all the services that we're looking forward to. Just also want to highlight the fact that it's 9 years running. So for 9 years running, we have developed a budget that is property tax levy cap compliant. That's very important for us in balancing our fiscal responsibility to the quality of our services. So those are some of the highlights. We have a couple of questions that I'll read, and then Sigal, you can kind of chime in, or we can answer some of these. One question that came in seems to be a leftover because it came in right after our last board meeting, but I think it's pertinent to some of the concerns anyway. Michael indicates, hi everyone, I posted this on your YouTube video from yesterday. Of course, for everybody, we do not monitor the comments on YouTube. In fact, we delete them. And also this email address, the one that is the Merrick Board of Education one, we only monitor immediately before and immediately after board meetings. But he writes, can we discuss the elephant in the room, please? What is the plan for September 2020 if life is not much different from our new norm? I have a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old, and I am concerned that our state and school district feels enough is being done. I agree that this is uncharted territory, but as a parent, I want to know a plan for the future and how education will improve for our children, because to say it compares to in-person schooling would be a gross inaccuracy. For instance, perhaps all children go to school on a 3-day per week staggered schedule rather than a 5-day per week, so that on any given day there are 40% less children in the school. Again, as a parent, it would be reassuring if this stuff is being discussed. If it is, I apologize, but I hate for September to come around and we are shocked if online learning is the only option and parents are freaked out over their children's education. I'll respond, and if any board members want to chime in, please. So we are beginning the planning. We have been beginning the planning for a while for next year. And very broadly, we're looking at 3 possibilities, and these are very broad possibilities. Possibility, the one I think most of us are hoping for, is that we have in-person, in-school education from day 1 in September. Looking at that possibility, there is a gigantic list of parameters that have to be considered and things that we will have to do to make it a safe and comfortable environment. The second option that we're looking at is probably the other extreme, and that's looking at school being in a virtual environment. In that area, we're looking at how to better deliver services, and we'll have some deeper discussions over the next couple of weeks about exactly how to do that, and what school will look like in a virtual environment come September. It is my hope that that would be very short-lived, if it happens at all. So hopefully we would have a very short-term period in virtual learning and move back to it in person. We're also looking at everything in between, those blended scenarios where part of instruction happens in school and part of instructions happens in a virtual environment. And we'll be digging deeper into those. Most important to myself, I'm sure the board, and certainly our administrative team and our faculty, is that we take into consideration the special nature of elementary school children when we make these plans. One of the great things about the Merrick School District is we serve kindergarten through 6th grade students. The models that you see that may be very successful in the secondary education program just won't work here. So as we move forward, we will be taking into consideration what will work with young children. We have kids coming here who are slightly over 4 years old. They haven't met their 5th birthday. We have to take them in consideration. So all our plans will do that. The initial planning is starting with the administrative team. It'll bring in broader and broader levels of our staff and our faculty. It'll encompass our partners in the PTA and community as well, and certainly be led by a Board of Education. These things will be growing over time. I'm fortunate enough to be a member of a county-wide superintendent's reentry team, where we are considering these things across districts. We had a meeting earlier today, and I could tell you that all the other school districts that participated really are about the same place as us. How this relates to a budget? Well, the most expensive version of school will probably be in school and in person, especially adding the new components that we will have to do to keep schools safe. Those things are accommodated in our school budget. On the other extreme, a virtual environment, it's hard to know what the budget parameters for that will be, because right now in New York PAWS, our governor has required us to pay everyone. There's no room for not paying people in the current New York PAWS. Time will tell how that will look down the line. So a lot's going on. Michael, we are looking at this. You don't have to apologize that we're looking at this. We're getting there, and I suspect over the next couple weeks, and certainly by the middle of summer, we'll be unfolding a lot more information to our community, especially when we hear more and more from the governor's office, the state education department, State Department of Health, and the CDC about what parameters. So that's that question. I don't know if any board members want to add anything.
I'm happy to jump in, Dom. Thank you. Just first off, thank you for your leadership in the county on that committee, and for everything you and the administration have been doing thus far. I also appreciate, and I know we all do, the conversations and the coordination that we've had with the high school district on things that, have required that coordination. And I would just say, obviously, we all want to be back in school. And I know that nobody is planning for every alternative more than you all are. And so for the people who have reached out, to me and who have reached out to the other board members, just know that, this is something we're thinking about, every day, and stay tuned for information as it becomes available. So thank you, Dom.
Yeah, and also I just want to mention, also thank you very much, Dom, for your outstanding leadership and your administration as well. But I think I can speak for all of us as well, where we all agree that nobody on this board or in this administration or in any of our buildings for that matter thinks that remote learning is the way there's any benefit to any child with remote learning. We all want to be back in school. So we are going to do whatever we can. And all of us collectively are going to do whatever we can. Unfortunately, a lot of it is led by the governor. So as Dr. Palmer mentioned, but I really want to focus on the fact that I don't think that there's one person that thinks remote learning is in any way a substitute for in-person teacher learning, especially with our class sizes the way they are. We get such one-on-one attention every step of the way. So that's really important to all of us.
Okay, we have another question. Actually, there's two questions attached. I'm going to read the second one first because we probably hit on this. If the state dictated a future closing of schools for public health reasons, then in what way would the superintendent anticipate differences in educational methods versus spring 2020? So I think I kind of touched upon that as well. The first part of the question from Deborah Pollock was, please clarify how the proposed budget is broken down by dollars and percentage for large buckets, fixed expenses, salary, pension, building and grounds, maintenance, utilities. In a nutshell, what dollars and what percentage of the budget is more discretionary, so to speak? So I'm going to just say one thing is that in the presentation, you saw some of that breakdown. For Deborah Pollock, if she really wants to study this, all of that information, if you go to our website, scroll down partway through the page, you'll see an icon that says budget information. Click on that, and there are detailed sheets of line-by-line budgets that probably have much more detail than even she's asking for. For anybody who wants to look at that, they can. But I think you can highlight some of the big categories.
Yeah, I think that when I did go through the slide and talking about the budget and discuss, just showing you where the funds were going by type of expense, you can see that the largest portion of our budget is tied to salary and benefits. And salaries and benefits are dictated by contractual agreements with our staff, and the benefits, of course, depending on what they are, whether they're retirement benefits or whether they're health insurance benefits, those increases are also given down to us by the state and by the various retirement systems. So if you take that 80% of the budget off the table and you have you're left with your 20%, you have to realize in that 20%, now you have all of your contractual costs, you have all your transportation costs, utilities, a lot of fixed items are within that 20%. So when we develop the budget, we develop the budget zero-based. We start from the bottom up, and we do build some contingencies within the budget because we do know that there are a lot of unexpected costs that happen throughout the year. For instance, this year, we had to go out and we had to buy a lot of PPE and a lot of additional cleaning materials just because of the pandemic, and it was a good thing that we did have some contingency in the budget for that. So there is a small percentage of the budget that could be labeled discretionary or some contingency. We usually don't know that until midway throughout the year. What happens is a lot of times if we budget a certain amount for health insurance costs, for instance, our health insurance costs are based on, our increases are based on an annual calendar year. But as a school district, our school budget year runs through a fiscal year, July 1st through June 30th. So we budget a certain amount, not knowing what our health insurance increase is going to be. And once we find out what the actual increase is, we can determine whether or not we have some additionary or contingency money within our health insurance line. And that's what we do throughout the whole year. Throughout the whole year, we're monitoring costs, and we're seeing where we are falling short and where we have additional funds. Sometimes we do have to transfer money into codes just because there are codes that do run short. But there isn't a big percentage of discretionary spending within the budget just because the salary and benefit costs of providing services and educational programs does take up the largest percentage of the budget. But if anybody has any detailed questions, though, that they would like to sit down with me and discuss, my email address is on the website. It's jbuscemi@merrick.ny. jbuscemi@merrick.k12.ny.us, and you can either call me or email me, and we can also sit down and discuss and go through any questions that you may have.
Yes, please call her.
Yes.
No, seriously, also if you have programmatic questions, I or some of the other administrative team would be appropriate to answer those questions, and as well as budget questions. So we have two more questions that were sent in, but I believe that they were misdirected to us. I have an email from Rona Baruch and Donna Richardson, both who I remember when their children were here, but both questions reference secondary school programs. So I will be I'll be responding to those people in case they're not listening, their emails, and I'll also be sending them on to my counterpart in the high school district to respond to them. So that's the extent of the public questions.
Great, thank you, Dr. Palmer. Okay, so Nancy,
I'd like to make a motion to approve items 4A1, B1. Yep, for A1 and B1. Motion?
Motion?
Second?
Question,
second?
All in favor?
question.
Question?
Oh, question.
Budget, because I can't find my agenda, unfortunately, it's in my other office. This is regarding the budget, but we're approving this now, I'm assuming. I have.
No, this is the superintendent's report.
Okay, I'm sorry. I don't have
Yeah.
it. Sorry.
Yep, this
So,
is,
so just for the public who doesn't have it in front of them, there's two items on the superintendent report. The first item, A1, is appointing basically everybody who works for the district and others to be election workers, because setting up the ballots was quite a great endeavor. Thank you, Clarice, and thank you to all the clerical and clerical aides that help with that. And the counting of the ballots will probably be an even more daunting task. So that's the first item, approving those people as election workers. The second item is the bids have come in for the site work at Levy Lakeside School, and this is after vetting the bids. This is awarding that bid to Lantec, which after the bids were vetted, they were the lowest price responsible bidder. So that's the two items before the board.
Great, so all in favor, I guess, Nancy, you want to?
all in favor, everyone?
Aye.
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 Okay. So now I'd like to, if nobody has anything else, I'd like to, a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Gal, just one thing before
Yeah.
we adjourn. Just, I want to, it seems like so long since we started the school year. But at the beginning of this school year, as we know, the district started to pursue distinction from the Anti-Defamation League as no place for hate schools. And all three of our schools were notified that they have been honored by the ADL as no place for hate schools. And so that was an incredible effort led by central administration, Dr. Karp and the diversity and inclusion team in each of the buildings, and the social workers and all of the children. And it's really a great credit to, not only the type of district that we are academically, but also it's a credit to the type of young citizens and characters that we're helping to develop in our district. And so I am incredibly proud of that distinction. And I offer my sincerest thanks to everyone that played a role in that. It's a pretty awesome accomplishment, and we should be really proud of that. So thank you.
Thank you.
Absolutely, Nancy. Thank you. Thank you to all of you that did that. Absolutely, Nancy.
And
Thank you.
another reason why children need to be in schools, because it's not just about the curriculum and the education. It's also about the social aspect of being in school and how to communicate with others, and to how to deal with other children and how to deal with conflict. And so we are all obviously concerned with the education component, but we also have to remember that there's a social aspect to it. And children need to be together. They need to navigate the playground. They need to go to gym. They need to go to art. They need to go to music. They need to have concerts. So I hope everybody helps to continue to flatten the curve. And I hope we all work together still as a community to keep things as good as they were today and better, and not have any spikes so these kids can get back into school. It's very important. So with that,
100%. Thanks, Gina.
Well, I think Butch had a question about the
That's the
budget.
budget.
I have some simple questions. I'm sorry, I don't want to make this long, and I'm not trying to grandstand.
No, you're fine.
But there's a lot of, my quick question is, like, lines from last year on the budget, how much wasn't spent? That's one thing that we didn't get. I wanted to see that, because a lot of different things happen. I know we're mandated to pay all the staff because that's what the governor's orders were, the executive order was. But a lot of supplies weren't used. It could be the simplest thing, electricity, water, things that we could probably save a few dollars on. Maybe we can reduce some of those lines because it wasn't spent. Instead of it going into the general fund and add it back into the budget of today, maybe reduce the amount of money that we're trying to, raise the budget by. It may not be a big savings, but every dollar makes a difference, especially now when people don't have any money. I mean, it's like, did we do, a lot of the capital work wasn't done, it was pushed off. Did we spend a lot of the petty cash? Did we have professional development meetings because, they couldn't have it? Or did they do it by Zoom? Did we spend the same amount of money? Simplest thing is like paper towels or, soap for the floors and cleaning supplies. I know you have to clean it more often, but it's clean now. Nobody's been in the schools. So how much of that can we save? How much of each line item didn't we spend? Like I said before, the bus company, perfect example. How much money do we spend with them? We only went to school for, this is a whole third of a year that we missed. So that's a third of, I know the largest part of the budget is the payroll and the expense of the payroll, but the other 20%, if we could save some points on that, I think it would be a great savings for the public. I'm not doing it for any other reason because I think it's the right thing to do. That's the question I have.
Yeah, I think a lot of those items will become clearer in the next few weeks. So as one of the things I constantly remind myself is it feels like so much time has gone by, but the reality is it was mid-March when we closed schools. So bills are really just now starting to catch up for even during the time we were closed. So things like the electric bill and the gas bill, things like that, we will know soon how that caught up for the months that we didn't spend them on.
Can we call them utilities in to come and meet us now and see what the savings might be?
Yeah, well, I mean, we get the regular readings, so things like that will come along. Some of the so much of the supplies for a school year by March are already been ordered, and they are here. And we've made it very clear to the building staff to account for that before we start next year's ordering of things. So we may see some of that next year.
Getting rid of those line items. I mean, it could be a simple item as paper towels for the bathrooms. I mean, the kids weren't.
I also want to just mention though, Butch, I totally agree with you in certain respects, but we're also facing cuts that the governor is saying that he's.
Oh, I totally understand. I'm all for the CARES Act, and I understand all this, and I want the budget to pass as much as everybody else does. But if we could save a tiny bit, or do we actually need a brand new school bus this year? Can we get through one more year with the old school bus and save some money? That's what, because people
Not
today.
if it's not safe.
It's
If it's not
we can't
safe.
use it. No, and then,
Right.
we need to get it. I don't know that answer, and that's why I'm asking these questions.
I got it. Yeah, I think there's, there's a couple of pieces. One is, there's gonna, when, in the next budget, there's gonna be some balancing acts. So if we discover that as we will, as a result of not being here, we didn't use the same amount of toilet paper, some cleaning products, et cetera, that's gonna be clearly offset by the amount of sanitizers and special other items that we need come the fall. Additionally, I think that there's some possibilities that, depending on how things go, I'm going to be talking to the board in the summer, that we're going to have to reallocate some of that broader $52 million to things like hiring more cleaners.
Right.
Because the reality will be that we're going to be having people following around during the day cleaning up more. So there'll be a lot of readjustments that'll come as the time goes by. The other component is if one of two, what I see as very bad things happen, one is if the budget fails and we have to go to a contingency bus, we will then, by that point in time, have a better idea of what we spent out, and some of the first things that we can look to reduce. And that $1 million that we'll have to cut out of this budget will be some of those unused pieces. The other piece that could go bad here, that would be more like something we'll see close to the opening of school, is if the federal government doesn't backfill the gap in the state budget, and our governor follows through with his, I don't want to call it a threat, because I don't think it's really a threat. I think it's his acknowledgement that he may come back and cut our aid. So then we're going to have to kind of backfill on that. So, Butch, I think you're right on target that there's going to be incremental savings by not being closed, by not being open for, basically 3 months, that are really going to be things that we can look towards.
Is it safe to say that whatever savings you might have now will be incorporated in next budget if there isn't any additional spending? That's because I understand
Absolutely.
having a little bit of cushion now is important, because we're not know what we're walking into. As far as cleaning,
Right.
sanitizing, no budget, things that might be cut from us. But in the future budget, if none of these things get cut, we could probably reduce the budget in the future if possible. Is that safe to say?
Yeah.
And I agree.
And as always, when we discover during the course of a school year that we don't need every dollar that was budgeted, we don't spend it.
Right.
Every year we return a portion of the money back to the fund balance, which is rolled over, of unexpended funds, because we decide what we need and what we don't need as the year goes by.
Okay, so that's answer my question. I appreciate it, and I support this budget.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Butch. A motion to adjourn the meeting to go for personnel matters?
Motion.
Motion.
Second?
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. We're going to go off live. You are still live for a little bit. And then we're going to go off recorded. And then